final session of the day, and it's been great. It's been absolutely great so far, but I know this is also going to blow you away. And it's about how can we inspire the next generation through tradition and innovation into higher education and beyond the classroom. And for this panel, we've got Sarah Burkay, we have Nadine Kadan, Eleanor Brannett, and Celine Simon. Have I said all that correctly? Please come up. Okay, so Nadine, would you like to start and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure, no pressure.
None at all.
Well, first of all, hello everyone. I'm so excited to be here because we're at the zoo and I'm a children's book author. So that's triple excitement for me, and I'm excited about the tigers afterwards. So please bear with me. I'm a children's book author. I've written books about cats, so that's why it's even more exciting to be at the zoo, and that's one of them. I have them here with me. It's the Jasmine Sneeze. I've done a book called Tomorrow. This is my latest, is called The Kind Activity Book, and it's a collaboration with me and the amazing Axel Scheffler. So these are my favorite 3 books. So to introduce myself, I'm an author and illustrator of picture books, but I was lucky enough to do books throughout different ages of children. So I did for younger kids, for older kids. I did a graphic novel for kids who are 10 plus. And if you notice my accent and wondered where she's from, I'm from Syria. And I came to London 10 years ago for the obvious reasons. And I realized that the UK doesn't really have sun apart from today. And I had so much nostalgia, so I started to write about my hometown, about my cultural heritage, about our culture. But also I was writing about the war and ideas on displacement and belonging. And my obsession in children's books is basically diversity and having more diverse culture, more inclusion in books. And we can talk about why later.
Brilliant. Over to you, Eleanor. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elena Brannett, and I am the founder and CEO of Digital Camp. It's a social enterprise that I started just about 2 years ago now. I've been in the tech industry for many years, and I'm really, really passionate about helping young people, especially to build digital skills. I feel strongly that it's a necessary skill for everyone, no matter what industry you go into, no matter whether you're a creative person or a typically techie type of person. And I saw that there was a need for inspiring young people, and especially more girls, to learn these skills and to understand what they can do with them in order to, and that they have a role in playing in using these skills to create the future that they want to see.
Brilliant. And over to Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm the founder and CEO of Ambassador Play, and we're a social enterprise that essentially encourages children globally to build. And so we co-design these educational kits that also serve as utilitarian tools, so like a DIY flashlight. It's a one-for-one model, so for every kit that's bought, mostly by our parents in the US that say, I want my kids to be Elon Musk and they want them to learn STEM, a refugee child receives one for free, and that's an essential item that they need in the absence of like electricity, for example. And my background's in tech, and I did a master's in child development at Oxford, putting all of that into practice through the startup.
Brilliant. Listen, whilst we've got you, because I've seen that torch, and I mean, I kind of grew up on like Lego and blocks and stuff like that, but not really having the education around STEM. And this is just amazing, right? This is absolutely amazing. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about where the ideas have come from and how it gets rolled out across the world? Yeah, so it was co-designed, and it was an idea, and it was a request from displaced children. So I would run these workshops volunteering across, well, actually globally, whilst working in STEM, teaching kids how to code, because I learned to code at a young age, and I was like, this is a great skill. And they would say, I don't need to know how to code, I need light. I don't have access to electricity, I need that. What I didn't realize going from software to hardware is a very, very interesting process. So it was co-designed for 3 years in Calais, in Dunkirk, in
Hungary with Ukrainian children, across East Africa, because children are the experts. They're the ones who have the lived experience. And when you have a one-for-one, it can be quite a sort of inferior approach of like, or we've seen examples of that, of organizations being like, here's a bunch of free stuff dumped into a majority country. And we didn't want to do that. One, because that would be useless for them. But two, that they're the experts, they know what they need. And so they pretty much led us, and we designed it based on their requirements. What we found is sort of a prioritarianism approach, that if it worked for the child who had no access to education or electricity, it would work for children everywhere. Sort of like if you design a building and it's wheelchair accessible, anyone can use it. And we tested that. I didn't know what sort of model we'd go for, but I was hoping more of a for-profit, because I think philanthropy can be inefficient sometimes, and we found that to be the case. So 95% of our backers, when we launched it, bought the one-for-one instead of donating it directly, and wanted it for their kid to learn science. Didn't really care about the donation model, they just wanted it for their child. And so that's how we plan to scale that.
Brilliant. That was really, really great. Thank you. And Nadine, your books. So I was privileged to be on a call actually with you when you started talking about it, and I did that little Google thing, and just noticed that it's about Syria in terms of where it started and the level of diversity. Do you want to tell us a bit more about your inspiration for books and getting that education knowledge out there to young people?
Thank you. I mean, great question. The whole thing started for me is just I want to write about things that I'm passionate about, and I'm passionate about where I come from. I'm passionate about my hometown. And we went through the difficulty of being Syrians and being uprooted and moving here. But the more I worked in the UK, the more I felt there is this enormous need for diversity in children's literature. And there is one thing I keep saying in all my interviews, in all my talk, and I want to shout it from the rooftop. I think that end of racism starts on the bookshelf. And really, equality starts at home. And if we see the bookshelves to be more diverse, more culturally open to the world, we read about different cultures from around the world, we create a generation that is not scared of the other. And we create love, we create inclusion. I mean, my son's favorite character is a little girl from Nigeria celebrating the Yam Festival. And her name is Anayago. And the next day, when we met a girl who has similar name, similar background in Paddington Rec, he ran to her because that's the same. And that's what books do. It makes you love and empathize to children from different culture. It makes you want to be their friends. It's so beautiful to create a world that we're not scared of each other, that our cultures is loved in the same way, and kids can see the world through books. And the problem is, there is a lot to do. So when I started working, I thought I would never get published because there were 3% of children's books in the UK feature characters of color and ethnic minority, 3%. In a place that is so diverse, like, for example, London, how diverse London is. Now, I've been doing this for 10 years, it's 14%. So it's a bit better, but there is a lot to do. And that's why I just love talking about my hometown, love talking about where I come from, because there is the need for it, but also I love, through my work and my activism, to make sure that there are more and more authors of ethnic minority telling their own stories and their own voices. There are characters of color, there are stories of displacement. All of these stories can create more love and empathy among children, and can do it in the right way beyond the pages of the books in the schools. Because you can learn a topic easily in the school, but does it create love and empathy? Does it create connection as much as a story does? I don't think so, and that's why we need these kind of books.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to stick with you, actually. I'm going to stick with you, because a point you said, moving from 3% to 14%. Right, and I mean, that is a big shift, right? But when you look at London, how diverse London is, it still is a way off. What is it that we need to do in our education system so that we get to see more of this, and we're actually not talking about this in 5-10 years' time?
There is a lot to do. I mean, yes, there is a nice shift. So we're talking about from 3% to 14%. but that nowhere near reflects what London is, what the UK is, and the beautiful, diverse places that we live in. So for example, Notting Hill. There is a lot to do, and as a start, I would say is, for example, I myself been an activist about it, calling for more authors to tell their own stories in their own voices, more diversity. But also what we need to do is, a lot of the work should be happening in libraries and with teachers. So for example, there are schools that invite authors, but if you look at the series of authors that they invite to see the children, they're all the classic white British author. And if you look at the children in the school, a lot of these kids can be from South Asian background, from Muslim religion, from Asian background, and you wonder why. You would ask the headmaster, have you thought inviting an author of color? Have you thought, because this is how books can spread. When there is a demand for them, then publishers will move and will ask for more of these books. So librarians, training, talking about it, teachers, and also it's a business. So if you go to Waterstone and only buy the books that are on the shelf, then we're not gonna get there. But if you dig in and look for books of cultural diversity and look for books that has character of color or from a different culture, then they would say, oh, the market need more because people are buying them. So it's, I would say it's a collective work between authors, between the parents, between the teachers, between the librarians, between the educational system. And basically, it's creating love for different cultures from around the world, bringing your kids to festivals. I mean, we love being in Notting Hill Carnival. We love, you know, trying as much as possible with my kids to kind of introduce them to different culture and kind of live your life in an inclusive way.
Brilliant. No, listen, that's great. And can you imagine if the world was like what we get in these books? How great this would be. It'd be absolutely fantastic. But I want to come to you, Eleanor, because in terms of the work that you do for your digital camp and getting young girls into STEM and young people of colour, how important is it to you that STEM is taught through every school in the UK?
It's really important, and sadly we're hearing from even some of the best schools and the most privileged schools in the country that there isn't enough resource, there isn't enough capability in the schools to support the demand and the need to share this type of education. And so that was one of my inspirations, is seeing that my own children's school didn't have that capability, and seeing the people that I worked with around me not so enthusiastic about the technology and what you could do with technology and really bringing new worlds to life, and yet none of the kids in school were actually seeing that. So I felt like it was absolutely critical to be able to share the knowledge, the passion, and the opportunity of what this new technology world and digital STEM skills can bring to young people, and to give them that sense of empowerment and a real hands-on connection by giving them a chance to play with the technologies and to build something with it and to be able to call it their own.
Yeah, brilliant. And in terms of digital camp, how long has it been going? Tell us a little bit more about it.
Oh wow! Digital camp it's going well. It started actually 5 years ago. Maybe it's a little bit more than that now. 2017 was the first one, where we gathered colleagues around me, and we each gave a little workshop about what are the different technologies. We've now held, gosh, over 50, I think, camps since over the last 5 years. We now also hold a digital incubator. We have students that have gone through the digital camp, come up with their own ideas on how to use tech to help the planet, and pitch those to professionals at Vodafone, who've won £50,000 in funding, to enable them to create a proof of concept to bring their project to life, showing how people can step on a tile and generate electricity from that, to show the concept of renewable electricity and how it can then feed an urban farm in the company. So I'm really inspired by the opportunity that we have by working together, by working with people in this room who can share their skills and enable and inspire new young people to learn and to have confidence in their own ideas and bringing them to life to create new businesses for a better, more sustainable world.
Brilliant, thank you. And Sarah, you've got the torch. What else are you thinking of developing? Or what else are the younger people telling you that needs to be developed?
Walkie-talkies, radios, anything that they could build. It's that the point isn't that they go on to become engineers. It just so happens that that's the feedback, that they're like, oh, I'm an engineer now after building this. And sort of from the talk earlier with you guys, and, it's less so about STEM or whether they become artists or footballers or cricket. Like, it's more that they know that they can do it. It's the self-efficacy and agency through building. It's the tinkering that they've had that experience, and not to drag it into academia, sorry, but this was my thesis. So looking at self-efficacy is your perception of what you can do, and a core pillar of that is master experience, so that the kids that have joined your workshop have done that. They have a taste of it. They know that they could pursue engineering if they want to. And so that's through all our products. We just want that to be the outcome of it, that they could do it, that if they have experience writing or even just reading books, they're like, oh, maybe I can become an author at the early age is important.
Great. Listen, I'm going to stick with you because I think the first time I met you and talked about the camps in Calais, which aren't great conditions, right? And building torches so that they can see at night, and they need torches more so than they need a computer. Share with me a success story.
Still so early.
Come on, no, you've got them in you. Share with us a success story.
So we spent 3 years co-designing this, and we only launched last year. So the last time I met you, we had got a bunch of grant funding, and now we're raising up pre-seed. So it's still very early, but we've distributed hundreds of kits to displaced children in the camps, and they're using that, and we're collecting the data now. What does it look like after 6 months, after a year, and working with charities to do that? What are they using it for? Whilst in the co-design process, it was everything from going to the toilet at night, and the experience. It's absolutely dreadful in Calais, and particularly across Europe, for the refugee camps there. To what we're looking in East Africa is how does it help them with their homework, for example, or schoolwork in the evenings when there is no electricity to read later on.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you. And Nadine, can you tell us a little bit more about your books, where they're stocked, and how do you get more people of colour, or people, actually, you don't have to be of colour, to be reading your books and get to see them?
Yeah, good question. I mean, first of all, can I be in your camps? Or is it only for children? Because I'm a tech ignorant, and I realize how much I need to be in these, especially in kind of coding or technology. I do my illustrations watercolor, and like I'm too scared of technology, although like now is the time for it. And all the young illustrators, don't ask me my age, do everything on computer. It's easier actually, so yeah, we'll talk later. But to answer your question, I actually was fascinated and loved children's reaction to my book. And that for me is a start of how to get more of them, or get them out there in schools. So I'll give you a few examples, and then we'll take it from there. So for example, my book tomorrow, it's about the war. So it's very dark images. I'll open one of them. When I did it, I was in Syria. I had no idea I'm going to publish it in the UK. So this is one of them. It's really dark. It's the mom watching the news. And as you all know, how dark the news about Syria was and still. And I did it in Syria. I had no plan to publish it in English. I had no plan to do it in the UK. I thought this book's going to be for Syrian children. I'm going to read it in refugee camps. It's for us to process this trauma together. I came to the UK, and luckily I had this amazing indie publisher. Obviously, the bigger publishers are a bit more cautious about doing these kind of books, but because Lantana is an indie publisher, she said, let's do it in English. And I was like, oh my God, she's crazy. Nobody would want, what parents wants to read for the children a book about the war? And First time I read it, I was in a small school in the south, close to Brighton. I don't remember the name of it. Littlehampton, I guess, that village. And when I finished reading this book, I was really scared. And a girl came to me and she said, well, your story happened to me. I said, really? It's a story about war and this child who can't leave the house because there is war outside. How come it happened to you here in close to Brighton? And she said, well, it was really raining. And I really wanted to go to the park. And I got stuck at home and I felt so sad, just like the boy in the story. And I told her, what did you do? Because in the story, they imagined a peaceful place. And she said, did you imagine a sunny place? And she said, no, we just watched the Minions instead. but why I'm telling you the story is to show you how children can connect, even if they're not children of color, and even if they didn't go through war, they connect and empathize in their own ways and in their own beautiful way. And she saw herself in a story that is about the war. So for us, for our books, of authors of ethnic minority or authors of color or author of cultural diversity, our books should be part of the mainstream as a start. It should be read by, it should be in Waterstone, it should be in W.H. Smith, it should be in Sainsbury, and then it will make their way to all the diverse communities. But what's happening is, if we say that you are author of color, you are niche, and therefore you're gonna only be invited to niche events called authors of cultural diversity, or we're never gonna reach the wider market, and the empathy that we want to create, that kind of love and diversity to other cultures and kind of unifying word toward the children is never gonna happen. What's gonna happen is we're gonna stay in a niche market. And my experience in Tomorrow proved me wrong, proved me that yes, a book about the war can be read by children who are never been in a war zone, but also it's very, very important for children who actually experienced war. I mean, I've read it in so many refugee camps. I've read it here in the UK with so many asylum seekers, NGOs, and every time I read it, it is unbelievably beautiful to see how a simple story reading session can turn into a therapeutic session, can turn into a session of let's process this trauma together. Let me tell you my story. Let me tell you how I came to the UK. Let me share my story. So it's a mix of both. It's a mix of getting it out there and keep shouting about it, basically.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you. Eleanor, a point just made just now was about adults and STEM. So if you start to think, young people, and I think of my children when they first picked up a computer, give me a phone, I haven't got a clue what to do. I know how to phone, I know how to text, and that's probably go on Facebook, which is old hat. How do you get the older generation to support the younger generation to learn more STEM-based subjects?
I've been fortunate to be working with some amazing people in tech, but not only people in tech, because every single person has got some kind of a skill that is related to the field that they can share with the students that want to learn. So we started first with just my colleagues around me who happen to know about a particular technology, whether it be cloud or with augmented reality or with AI. And I asked them to break it down. How can you make this interesting, relevant, and fun for a child who has a 7-second attention span? And sometimes you get these amazingly intelligent people who can go on for hours about their technology, but if nobody understands what it is, then it doesn't become relevant. So my challenge was to get them to learn how to tell a story, using their knowledge to engage the person in front of them in 7 seconds. And that's where I started from. And they loved the challenge, and it worked. And so that's how we started these digital camps. And there are lots of people who, in our generation, and older, who want to learn technologies. My mother, who gets confused when she can't figure out which button to push to answer my WhatsApp call. You know, so there is an opportunity to share these skills that work with engaging somebody in 7 seconds and make it simple for them to understand this impacts that, and if you want to do this, you do that. And that's about it. And then you add a little bit of, what do you want to do today? And then show them how they can integrate that skill. And that then they own it, and they want to learn more.
Okay, great. And I've got 2 minutes before I go to the audience on questions, and a theme that's running through today is all of the panelists and speakers have been selfless in terms of what they're doing. And I want to know why. I just want to know where it comes from. What makes you think that, you know, you want to go out there and you want to teach STEM to young people, irrespective of whether they've got money or not? Where does it come from, and why? What's your why? Give me your why. Go on, you can start first. Yeah.
A very clear understanding that untapped potential is pretty much a net loss for humanity. Like we've all, everyone's hardworking in this room, but there has been a lot of luck in our lives to end up in this room right now. I have 50 plus first cousins, my dad and I counted. I was born in Sudan, free school meals, first to go to university, ended up in Oxford. Like, a lot of luck took part in that, as well as hard work. The children that we work with could go on to become brilliant, and Einstein and so on, just do not have the opportunity. And I think everyone on this panel would agree with that there is brilliance everywhere. But also, even if you don't care about that part from an economic, or if you're fiscally minded, it makes better sense for our economies. That there's so many reports that come out of this, lost Einsteins, and what that means if we're not educating.
Look, I get that, but I'm talking about why. Why did you wake up and think, do you know what, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, and this is where it's going to get
exactly
involved.
that.
Yeah.
So this understanding that I have 50 plus first cousins, a lot of them are displaced children. A lot of luck ended up in my experience that I could go to Oxford and stuff, but I'm no more brilliant, if that makes sense. Like, it's
sure.
If they had the opportunities, they would do the same.
Right, great, love that. Back to you, Ellen. You've had time to think.
I think my why starts with my family first. I wanted to give my kids a chance to, I wanted to understand what is it that's going to motivate them to be successful in the future, and to see the opportunity that I saw in front of me. And when I asked my daughter when she was choosing her subjects, are you interested in tech? Tech is so cool. How could you not possibly, I didn't say that, but she just said, no, it's not interesting. Look at that guy in my classroom. All he does is sit at the desk, and he's got his head down on the screen, and it's not interesting. She's a social person, so she's a creative person. So that for me was, it was like, okay, that's interesting. It's a challenge for me. So my why is because I have always believed that tech can help people, and this is something that came from my childhood. When I grew up in Silicon Valley, and I saw the first Macintosh come in, my math teacher bring in the first Macintosh, and he put it on the desk, and he said, this is going to change the world. And that was the first graphical user interface computer that was effectively going to go on to change the world. And I thought, well, it's an opportunity to bring together art and computing, and I was a sort of arty person, and so that's one of the things about me, of how I wanted to share that with the world. And so I just sort of had that vision in my head since I was young. And then the final part is, I love a challenge. Tell me I can't do something, and I will find a way to do it.
Brilliant, love that, beautiful. And Nadine, you've certainly heard about your passion and the war and your background. Is there anything else that has really inspired you to move forward outside of family as well?
It all comes from a personal experience, doesn't it? I mean, it was inspiring to hear, but also for me, it's a personal story of why I'm passionate about diversity and why I'm passionate about telling my own stories. When I was a child, I didn't see myself in stories. There wasn't Syrian children's books. I was reading French books, and I was reading English books, and I didn't think that we are worthy of being in stories. I didn't think that we can be a princess, people from Syria or Arab characters. And I remember I used to change my name to a foreign name. So when we play the princess, I can't be who I am. I should be like a princess from Europe, because this is where they are, not in our hometown. No, I didn't see fountains. I didn't see arches and courtyards in children's books. And that is create identity issues for children, create inferiority complex. And when I grew up, I wanted to change that. I wanted Syrian kids to be proud of who they are, and I wanted kids from all ethnic minority to be proud of where they are, to be proud of their culture. But also, I mean, I believe in the power of the story. Stories makes us who we are. They change our lives. And I was listening to an editor the other day saying something that kind of like blew my mind. She said the highest level of success, chances of success for children is reading for pleasure. So it's not the parents' economic situation. It's not whether they went to this amazing fancy university or not. It's that how much they read for pleasure, they have the highest level of success. And I believe that stories change my life, and I want that to other kids.
Brilliant, beautiful, love that, love that. So, what questions do you have for me? What questions? What questions? There we go, love that. Can I just take your mic? Do we need a mic? Because it's recorded. Oh, I see.
Thank you to all the panelists. That was absolutely wonderful, inspirational. Can you tell us a little bit more about how to capture somebody's attention in 7 seconds? What are the tricks?
Bring it back to them. It's all about the person that you have in front of them and what do they care about, what's important to them at that moment. And if you know a little bit about the person, that's better. It's easier for you to engage. But if you don't know, then you ask them questions and you find out what it is that they care about in that moment, and then you engage with them in that way.
Great. Another question? Thank you.
Thank you all so much. That was incredible. I have a question for you, Nadine. That was a great anecdote about reading your book in the classroom. Having been a product of the English school system here and also in the US, I still find that a lot of education is quite behind how dynamic and how fast-paced our societies are moving. And so what do you find in terms of incorporating your books and, you know, the learnings you're trying to disseminate through your books to the classroom? Like, what hurdles have you met from the schools, and just what is your general perception? Have you been surprised in any ways? Was it unexpected in some ways? Because as much as it would be amazing for them to be at Waterstones and all the other places you mentioned where they should be, I also think that there's a huge need for them in the classroom as well.
You opened the wounds in this question. I do have my problems with the current educational system. It breaks my heart every day. It starts too early with children. It's too focused on getting them to write and read early, and it kind of takes away from them their creativity, their love of learning. So what we're doing to children is, instead of giving them place and space to be interested to learn, we're forcing them to learn. We're teaching them rather than creating curiosity and telling them, let's create space for you to have this passion to learn. So it's really sad. What shocked me the most is that, so I've been incredibly lucky to visit schools around the UK. So I've went to small villages, north, south, and then I went to like the big fancy schools that are, what do you call them, independent schools, fee-paying schools. So I've experienced schools with the highest, for example, free meal proportion, and schools that are like extremely, extremely wealthy. And what I realize is, you'd expect the fee-paying school to be the most creative, the most fast-forward, the one that they actually, those are the one who are probably don't have a school library. Those are the one who was like, let's get them to Oxford quickly, let's get them to write, let's get them to read, let's be militant about how much spelling they can do by the age of 4. And then you go to other schools who maybe they don't have that obsession. They have the space to create and to invite more authors or to incorporate stories in their educational system, because they're not too worried that if we missed an hour bringing an author talking to children and inspire them to be authors, we would be not teaching them how many words they can spell. So there is this kind of equation. And I see that there is a big gap between them. There isn't a conversation. And then what's happening is that, unfortunately, it is a difficult system that the fee-paying schools are getting kids to get better jobs, and those schools who are creative, not necessarily children, are getting to good university. And here there should be a conversation between the two. There should be a system where incorporate creativity, story reading, bringing role models, bringing authors to schools to read their books, and using stories as part of the learning themes. So instead of saying today for example, we're gonna read about what is happening in the Middle East, or just read a story about a child who lived in the war zone, bring an author, and let the kids relate on a personal level and see the results, as opposed to let's read it in a kind of like very direct, very raw way. So a lot of it is personal so far, nothing systemic. So maybe we need people like you to make it systemic and not personal, not only because what I see is it's either the teacher who's passionate about that or not. So it's not there is no like a whole kind of umbrella that kind of cover that passion.
Thank you. Brilliant, thank you very much. Now, just before we conclude, have you enjoyed yourselves today? Yeah, all those online and on YouTube and wherever else it will be, you definitely would have enjoyed yourself. I know, had you been here, you would have seen the thousands of people clapping and cheering and really enjoying themselves. But just to say thank you to you ladies for the incredible work that you're doing, that you continue to do, and all the great things that you aspire. I truly hope they come to fruition for you. So thank you very much. And I'd just like to close with some parting words from our dearest Thrasher, please. Thank you.
Wow, well, apart from thank you to David, who brings it all together, really, who brings the humanity back into the room, doesn't he? I mean, he brings us all together. He really unifies us. I mean, the other word that he used was selfless. And I completely agree with you, David, that there is this unifying theme from all the speakers who were just extraordinary, to listen to all the ways that you're breaking boundaries, you're innovating, you're inspirating, that's a new word. We will coin that today, thank you very much, and put that in my back pocket. But in a way that we are inspiring the next generation in so many ways. And how everyone in this room is bringing light, writing books, changing the world with so many, networks. And I can't even begin to think of, training the next generation with young girls. And just there's so many ways that we've brought together this whole room. And, we've had, titans of industry in this room today as well. And I just feel so grateful for all of us being able to be here, and just thinking of how we are all now collaborating and supporting each other. And I just want to say thank you, and I cannot wait for our next one, which is in early November, and for all the ones to come that are on the horizon and beyond. We've got a lot to do, and that is what's so exciting, that we have an incredible amount of work to do. But it's not even work, it's because we love what we do, it's passion. And we're all singing from the same hymn sheet in this room. That's why we gather here today. We love what we do, we love educating the next generation, and we do it in our own way. And we all find our little part of the world to bring our voice to. And today was an incredible way of shining a light on people's extraordinary way of doing that. And to be able to collaborate and stand shoulder to shoulder with each of you is a genuine privilege. So thank you. And, you know, we have a lot to do. And, you know, onwards and upwards. Thank you so much. Thank you.